Welcome to another part of the CoreTrustSeal 2023 to 2025 requirements video series. I'm Pascal Flohr of DANS, the Dutch National Expertise and Repository for Research Data. In this video series, we talk you through the new CoreTrustSeal requirements, and you will learn about the details of each requirement, the evidence expected from applicants, extended guidances, and the changes compared to the previous version of the requirements. This video covers requirement number 2, rights management. It gives a summary and highlights the most important aspects, but please do refer to the full guidelines and extended guidelines for the complete requirement text and guidances. Also, if you have not already done so, I recommend that you watch the general introduction video to this series first. So the second requirement of CoreTrustSeal is rights management, and it reads as follows. The repository maintains all applicable rights and monitors compliance. So this requirement relates to the system, methods and artifacts in place for rights management, like licenses, agreements, terms and conditions, related policies and procedures, and more. So it goes beyond signing a license agreement at the point of deposit. So why is this a requirement of a trustworthy repository? In order for digital objects to be either reused or archived but protected, like for sensitive data, it is important that it is clear what can and cannot happen to the digital objects, for example through licenses. It is also important that this is subsequently monitored for compliance and that measures are in place in case of non-compliance. Data and metadata, even open data, usually have some rights attached, for example including obligations like citation. Therefore, a trustworthy repository is expected to manage and communicate all rights covering data as well as metadata of their deposit, storage, preservation, access and use. And this can be defined in a set of standard terms and conditions or differentiated by deposit or type of digital object. The repository must also obtain the necessary rights from the depositor, and the repository must demonstrate that there are sufficient controls in place to apply and monitor rights. While it may be very challenging to identify instances of non-compliance, consideration should be given to the consequences if non-compliance is detected. For example, these can be sanctions on current or future access or use of the data and metadata. This is especially important for sensitive data, as there are severe legal penalties that can apply to both the user and the repository. For this reason, the target compliance level for repositories with sensitive data is implemented rather than in progress. So these 7 aspects should be referenced in the response statement and as evidence. So you can see them here, just going through them quickly. So they are the overall rights management approach to deposited files, data and metadata, the right to copy, transform, store and provide access to the digital objects in the repository. Also the conditions of use, so things like intellectual property rights, distribution, intended use, protection of sensitive data and so on. Then agreements on deposit and access or licenses. Also, it should be detailed how rights metadata are managed for humans. So for example, with license documents or files, and for machines. The monitoring of compliance at deposits during creation and preservation and during access and reuse should be mentioned. And if there are any circumstances where compliance monitoring is not possible, this should also be described. And then lastly, it should be indicated what the measures are that are in place for when non-compliance is detected. And this should ideally be a public policy in place by the repository. And here are some examples. And it's important to realize first that these are just phrases. These are not a complete statement, right? These are just small parts of them addressing single aspects. And these are good examples because user licenses or other licenses are clearly indicated. And in this other good example, it's clearly indicated that it's what will happen upon non-compliance, which is important. And these are some bad or less good examples, and they mostly relate to the lack of mentioning or the lack of evidence for one or more of the aspects of the requirement. And it can be especially challenging to identify instances of non-compliance, but it's nonetheless important that a repository shows that it has considered how to do this and what the consequences would be if non-compliance is detected, as per the example on the previous slide. So what changes have been made to this requirement compared to the previous version of the requirements? The place in the order and structure of the requirements has remained unchanged. So this requirement is still number 2, and it is still related to the topic of organizational infrastructure. What has changed is that the phrase licenses covering data access and use has been replaced with rights. This has been done because rights or rights management is more holistic than licenses. Rights management goes beyond signing a license agreement at the point of deposit or access and includes all the measures necessary to manage the permission, prohibitions and obligations of all actors involved in managing data and metadata. Many digital objects have some rights attached even if there's no license artifact as traditionally understood. And it's hoped that this is now better reflected in the requirement text. This concludes the instruction on Requirement 2 of the new CoreTrustSeal requirements. Similar instruction videos can be found on all the other requirements on the CoreTrustSeal YouTube channel. And you can find the full set of new requirements for the period 2023 to 2025 on the CoreTrustSeal website. If you have any remaining questions or would like more information, please contact CoreTrustSeal using the email address shown here.